Jimbo Fisher was on this podcast with I think it was a former player of his. I don't know, Florida State. I had on Florida State. I don't know who it was. Probably somebody I should know. But he was on the podcast and he was talking about how his Florida State team that won the Natty in 2013. That they belong like they had like the most dominant season in the history of college football. And his argument was, well, they averaged 51.6 points a game and only gave up 12.1. They went 14-0. And I remember that team, and I was a team, but James was a redshirt freshman. He won the Heisman. They had Devontae Freeman at running back, who was a two-time Pro Bowler. And then they had Calvin Benjamin, who was, a first-round pick, and who early on, first year, he had a 1,000-yard season as a rookie with Cam Newton. Second year, they made the Super Bowl, and then he fell off after that. But he could ball. And that was a dominant team. I remember how dominant that team was. Let's see what happened with them was they didn't stick the landing, right? So in the national championship game, they beat Auburn 34-31. They had to win it at the very end. And I think that's why people don't remember them being as dominant as they actually were. Now, if you compare them to the teams of the last 25 years that I watched, the best teams I saw, so that would be obviously 2001 Miami, with all the guys that they had, man. I don't need to say it, but I was, Ken Dorsey was the quarterback, and he was like Matt Leinart before Matt Leinart. But in the NFL, he didn't, he wasn't really an NFL talent. But everybody else was. They had Frank Gore, they had Willis McGahee, they had Clinton Portis. Portis was the starter that year, and you had Gore and McGahee behind him. They had Jeremy Shockey and Kellen Winslow. The offensive line was stacked. The defense had Ed Reed and Sean Taylor. It was just a spectacular assortment of talent. Now, when you get around to this, the USC, Pete Carroll. So in 2004, that was when USC ran. They were, I think, maybe to this day, the only team to go wire to wire number one. They went 13-0, scored 38.2 points a game, averaged 13. Only gave up 13 points a game. But really, I think that the 2005 team, I think, was more dominant, really. But they lost, once again, they lost to Texas in the title game. And that was a team that had the chance to three-peat. But they averaged 49.2 points a game that year. But they gave up 22.5. That's the thing about that is, I remember watching that team, and basically that was a team that, they were so good offensively that they would kind of come out and basically just lollygag and just rely on how good they were offensively. When your offense is that good, your defense can kind of relax a little, right? So the defensive talent was there, but they just, they were so good and so talented and so dominant, just overall, that that I think the defense kind of took it easy. But really, I think they were better than the 2014, but it didn't matter because they lost. They lost to Texas, and then in 2008, that team also. That was a team that they went 12-1, like the 2005 team. The loss being to Oregon State, but that was a team that averaged 36.9 points a game, only gave up 9.2 points a game, and only gave up 10 touchdowns all season, right? And I think I remember Pete Carroll saying, before the season started, that he thought that 2018 might have been like their best team from top to bottom. By 2008, this is the year when you have, Clay Matthews and Brian Cushing and Malaluga at linebacker. I mean, that's one of the best linebacker cores at the time that you could ever see, in college. Clay Matthews went on to have, borderline damn near, a Hall of Fame career with the Packers. Won the Super Bowl, made like 6 or 7 Pro Bowls. So he had a hell of a career. Cushing was the Defensive Rookie of the Year. Maluga was a beast. That was just a vicious USC team. But again, that one game that they lost, ended up knocking them out of the, title game down the line. And so, they don't get to be in this conversation. And then you have 2018 Clemson. They went 15-0. Scored 44.3 points a game and only gave up 13.1. That was the year that they beat when Trevor Lawrence was a freshman. And they beat Alabama in the national championship game. Score was, I think it was 44-16 or 44-18, one of the two. That was a dominant team. And then you have next year, 2019 LSU. Who went 15-0, 48.9 points a game scored to 21.9 given up. Of course, it's a team with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase, with Justin Jefferson. And I mean, that's like it's like the USC team that had Leonard, Bush, White, Dwayne Jarrett, and Steve Smith. But if they all went on to be like, if Leonard, Smith, and Jarrett all went on to be like first team All Pro players in the league, still putting up crazy numbers, They also the LSU team also had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's been he started off okay, but he kind of just fell off in Kansas City, But yeah, they were a dominant team. I don't know their defense. I just wanted that USC team that we with Bush and Leonard and them and that 2005 team. I don't know. I never really saw a. I don't know. I don't know if there's a defense that would. They never were. They really struggled to score against anybody that season. Those guys, but that was junior year for all the skill players, or besides Jarrett. Jarrett was a sophomore, and then Matt is a senior. I mean, they were just fully formed, and just completely just rocking and rolling. And they were so good at the run game with Bush and White, talking about Liner, what he did, Bush and White both going for over 1,000 yards, having crazy seasons. Jarrett over 1,000 yards, 14, 15 touchdowns, whatever it was. Steve Smith, I think he just missed 1,000 yards. So that was a crazy good USC offense. Maybe even better than the LSU team because, Edwards-Helaire, he was a good player in college. He wasn't a Reggie Bush, So I just wonder, though, if that LSU team, if they played a 2001 Miami, as good as that Miami defense was, is it possible that, was that LSU offense just so good with Burrow, White, with Burrow and Jefferson and Chase, that there was no defense in the history of college football that could have slowed them down? It's possible. But yeah, with that FSU team, that's their problem, is that their problem is that they, like I said, they didn't stick around. You gotta go all the way, bro. 01 Miami, they crushed. Nebraska. 04 USC, they crushed a really good Oklahoma team. It was 55-19, I think it was. 55-21, maybe. One of the two. LSU. I don't remember who. Oh yeah, they beat Clemson. They beat the defending champions in 2019. It was competitive, but LSU was in control. LSU was clearly the better team, and they handled them. Clemson, they crushed Alabama. So all those teams, they stuck around and they went all the way with it. Whereas FSU got in the end against an Auburn team that they had to they had to win on the last drive of the game. So in a certain sense, I think that they they didn't. I don't know. I mean, they kind of get if they're not remembered how they should be. That's why. But they had a dominant season. There's no question. But that's the reason that they're not in the conversation with 01 Miami, 04 USC, 19 LSU. Even 18 Clemson. I think doesn't really get to. The 2019 LSU coming right on the heels of them. They kind of took some of the steam out of the year that Clemson had, especially with LSU beating them.